Hello everybody, welcome back to Overanalyzing One Piece. It's time for volume 2. So I actually need to correct something from my first video. Luffy does not initially want Nami to join. I got that wrong. He actively rejects her because she robs pirates, and that happens in like the first 2 pages of this volume. But then he has a shift, right? And the shift happens the moment that she says she can navigate. And at first I took this as like inconsistency in his character, but the more that I thought about it, it's just practicality. He wants a crew with skills, and he doesn't necessarily overthink morality if someone's useful. Because Nami throws Luffy under the bus without hesitation the second it benefits her in this volume. At first I was like, okay, whoa, ruthless. But then we find out that a pirate killed somebody important to her, and I think that completely changes my understanding of her character thus far. And you know, I really like that she doesn't just suddenly soften, she only agrees to work with Luffy after watching him. What makes this compelling to me though is that her alliance with Luffy is very clearly transactional. She explicitly states that she is not a pirate. She may be working with them, but she's not becoming one. That distinction is definitely psychological protection, I think partially also a way for her to validate in her own head that it's okay to go along with their mission even if they are pirates, right? Because it explicitly goes against her morals. Watching how this evolves over time though is definitely going to be key. The series is clearly setting up trust as something earned, like I mentioned earlier, which makes me really interested to see how this evolves over time, right? And what the turning point will be for Nami's loyalty, or if there even is one. Okay, let's shift gears to talking about Buggy. I genuinely like this design. Full circus aesthetic, clown captain, the lion tamer, canon theatrics, everything is just performance. His devil fruit lets him split apart and assemble. It's visually absurd, but I think it is thematically sharp. Fragmented body, oversized ego, he turns piracy into spectacle, which I think is a really great foil for Luffy. I think Luffy is very simple and direct, while Buggy is dramatic and ego-driven. On a different note, which I need help with without spoilers please, is his name Zolo or Zoro? Because in my volume that I'm reading it on, and also on Shonen Jump, it's Zolo, but I swear everyone says his name is Zoro. I didn't want to Google it because I didn't want to somehow stumble onto a spoiler, so if somebody can explain that in a not spoiler-free way, would be appreciated. Character-wise, Zoro needs a moment here. I love him. The moment Luffy tells him to run, he runs. The moment that I thought was super strong was when he had that fight with Kabaji, in which he, gives himself a self-inflicted wound. Zolo is obsessed with maintaining this narrative of his strength, right? He would rather injure himself than let his opponent think they damaged him significantly in any way. Which tells us 2 things about his character that I think are important. 1, his pride is a foundation to his identity, and 2, his ambition is tied to this perception and legacy. He and Luffy operate on completely different motivations, but align in this intensity and commitment. And I think this is why their dynamic works immediately. This is already kind of long, so I don't want to spend too much time on this, but Choo Choo genuinely made me sad. I'm assuming his story is a nod to Hachi, but that small side plot, for lack of a better term, I think really grounded this volume. You see the impacts of people losing their homes in the wake of pirating, and I think it's further pushed back to the idea of Luffy wanting to be a pirate when his personality contradicts so much with that, if that makes sense. It's a good balance. And finally, we get a Shanks mention. Shanks mention, which is an assumption because they just say red hair and the hat reminds him, blah, blah, blah. But hello, Shanks mention. And I love that we get a link to backstory early on in the current conflict, so I'm excited to see where that goes. That's all I got for volume 2, but I'll see you guys next time in volume 3.